Let me ask some very quick questions. First of all, Mr. Akwe, I think your point about a window closing is a very, very important one. If the international community coalesces and somehow accepts the egregious human rights abuses as okay, if a little changes around the edges may bring about, you know, a great deal of positive feedback from the international community, which has not been helpful, and that includes during the Bush administration as well as now during the Obama administration. And I would suggest that for those who are suffering torture and those who 400 plus political prisoners and everyone else who is suffering, delay is denial. You said it very well. Political will, I would say, paraphrasing you, is a decision which can be made, and that's what leadership is all about. You don't lead from behind, you lead by being the Prime Minister who says, we are going to change this. I would announce today we are going to reintroduce the Ethiopia Human Rights Act with very serious benchmarks. And the balance that the administration, thank you, please sit. The balance that the administration spoke about, which I think is unbalanced, and again, I agree with combating the HIV/AIDS pandemic and all the other humanitarian initiatives, but the political side, the changes, the good governance, is absolutely a prerequisite, as was said by Mr. Gast as well, to the sustainability of all of those other programs as well. The Charities and Societies Proclamation Law, the CS Law, that is an outrage. The journalist point that Dr. Nega, I should say, talked about, I mean, you suffered in prison. You know what it's like. You know what fellow inmates suffered at the hands of Melis, and people continue to do so today. When you pointed out that Ethiopia is the leading jailer of journalists, and I hope the media takes note of this, in sub-Saharan Africa and ranks among the top 10 in the world. That has to change. An unfettered press keeps checks on this Congress, on this president. It needs to do the same in Ethiopia. So thank you for your testimonies. They were very, very strong. You said, Dr. Pham, tantalizing. I would hope that, you know, for Mr. Haile Mariam, or Prime Minister Haile Mariam, things will move in the right direction. But friends don't let friends commit human rights abuses. And we have waited. I have waited, and Greg, we've talked about this. When do we do an Ethiopia hearing? We had hoped that there would be changes sooner rather than later. And as you said, Dr. Akwe, that window is closing, and it's not closing. It's not opening to reforms, and that's what we need to fight for. So thank you so much. Ms. Bass.
Yes, and I'm so sorry that we do have to leave to go to votes, and unfortunately I won't be able to return. But, and I'm hoping, though, that maybe we can have another hearing on Ethiopia soon to follow up with this. You know, Dr. Nega, you mentioned a term that sent chills up me, frankly, which was constructive engagement, because I think I've heard that term before. And so that's a very chilling notion. I wanted to know, though, if you would comment on a couple of things that Dr. Pham said. You know, you certainly pointed out all of the difficulties, but you did say that you thought it was a little bright light that their organized opposition was allowed, the protests that just happened, and I guess there's a window that there could be more protests in the future, and then also higher education. And I wanted to know if you could just comment on those. And let me just say that I just really appreciate everybody's participation and everything, and I just hope that we'll be able to return and have a more lengthy hearing.
Thank you. Let me just very quickly say something before I go into the specific question about the statistics and the data that you hear about the improvements and things of that sort. I would like to suggest to anyone who is dealing with Ethiopia to be very, very cautious about what kind of numbers they are playing. I mean, according to official data right now, Ethiopia has less poverty than Mexico. It has less poverty than Botswana. It has less poverty than a number of European countries. That is official data. You know, in 2010, they came up with a number in one region, in Afar, where they said 5 million kids are going to school that year. The total population of Afar is 1.4 million. That's how absurd this data is. And that is the kind of numbers that you hear these international experts come up and then talk about how things are improving. I would really, it is very hazardous. I'm an economist by training, and I know how these numbers are put together. So it would be better to be careful about that, cautious about that. But to the question about improvements, I really want you to take something very, very seriously, Ms. Bas. What I see is conflict. What I see is war. What I see is a civil war coming to Ethiopia.
Okay.
In fact, that's one of the reasons why I want to testify today, and I want you to take this seriously. Okay. Because this country is not going into the same way that it has gone over the last 21 years. I think people are fed up. I think people are going to fight, and nobody can blame people for fighting against tyranny. That is where it's going.
Do you think that there is an organized, do you think the opposition is organized enough to actually wage that?
I do believe that the opposition...
Conflicts in the existing government.
Yes,
then.
I do believe that the opposition that was fractured has started to seriously talk about mounting a unified challenge. That's what is going to happen. And that's why I'm trying to be more, if you might call it alarmist, in the sense that if people in the policy-making apparatus think that you can just keep going the way you are going about it, a surprise is coming to you.
Okay.
That is a very, very dangerous game that people are playing. So that's why I say, did they allow this demonstration recently? They did. But are they going to allow in the future? I don't think they will.
So one more quick question. I know when I talk to my constituents, they believe that we should cut off all foreign aid. And I feel a little conflicted over that, considering the humanitarian challenges, the food insecurity, the HIV, and maybe, other panelists could comment about that. Is that what the U.S. should do? End all foreign aid?